Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. So in today's video we're going to be learning how to make a crop shirts. If that's what you're interested in learning how to make, keep watching this video to the very end. Subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, share this video to other platforms where it will be needed, and let's head straight to the pattern drafting. Okay, so this video is very much beginner friendly. These are the measurements that we will be using for this very particular tutorial. So the first thing you'll be doing is to get your pattern paper, and you want to rule a line, which is your guideline. There's no measurement for this line, it's basically your guideline. Like I said initially, this video is going to be very much beginner friendly. So if you're a beginner, stick with me and you're going to learn how to make this shirt very properly. Now you mark half of your shoulder measurements and you remove 2.5 inches for your neck width. Okay, then from your shoulder measurements you mark 1.5 inch downwards. You use your ruler to connect from your neck width to the 1.5 inch mark that you've made, like so. Now, having done that, the next thing is to impute your armhole measurement. From that 1.5 inch you want to impute your armhole measurement and you mark it down like so. Now, having marked it down, you go ahead to measure the full length from your shoulder to that point and you take it all the way. The essence is to have a straight line so you get your chest line. That very line now is the chest line. And having done that, next thing we are going to do is to mark our shoulder measurement on that chest line like so. So use your ruler to connect the top and the down together. And having done that, this is what we're having. Okay, now I'm going to be getting the midpoint of my shoulder slope, and when I get it, I'll be taking my measurement downwards, bust point, okay, half length or waistline, and then my full top length. Please do not get confused, I'm marking full top length because I'll actually be using this very pattern for another project, but do not worry, as we go on I'll be showing you the actual length of the crop top. So now I'll go ahead to draw a line across those dotted points that I've marked. So having done that, now the next thing we are going to do is to impute our bust apart measurement. Okay, now I'm going to be imputing my bust apart measurement on the bust point line, on my waistline, and of course on the hip line. We are basically drafting a basic bodice. Okay, we are drafting a basic front bodice block for a full blouse length. So now I'll go ahead to connect the whole dotted points for my bust apart measurements. I'll connect them in a line like so. Then on my waistline, I'll go ahead and mark half inch between my bust apart measurements on the waistline. And coming down to the part of the hip line, I'll mark 4.5 inch from the waistline downwards. And then I'll go ahead to connect every point to form my dart. So having done this now, this is what this whole pattern is looking like. We'll go ahead to impute our round bust measurement. And whatever you have as your round bust measurement, you go ahead to impute it on the line, on your bust line. Okay. Also for the waist, we'll go ahead to impute it on the waistline. And for the hip also, we'll go ahead to impute it on the hip line. So having done that, use your ruler to connect all these points together. You want to watch carefully the way I'm connecting my points together. So to get your armhole curve, you're going to be marking the midpoint of the straight line you marked as your armhole length. And now I'm marking 1 inch inwards, okay, and also 1 inch outwards on this part, and I'm going to be joining those connections together like so. So this is basically what we have, and I'll use my marker to make this visible so you guys can see it properly. Okay, I'll use my marker to make everything visible so you guys can actually see it properly. So this is what we are having. I'm sorry you're not able to see the neckline. The depth of my neckline is 3 inches, please. The depth is 3 inches. So now, as you can see properly, I'm going to shift my paper a little bit so you guys can see. Now, because this is a boxy crop top, we don't want it to be fitted, okay? We are going to modify our armhole, our shoulder. I added 1/2 inch to the shoulder measurement, okay? I think the maximum you can add is 1 inch. Please do not add more than 1 inch. 1/2 inch is okay. If you add more than 1 inch, you'll be having a kimono kind of look, or a raglan, something like that. But please, just 1/2 inch or 1 inch is okay. Then for the depth of my shoulder, I came down by 0.8 inches. You can also use 1 inch. You can use 1.5 inch. It will be too low depending on how big you are. In fact, I think you should just use 1 inch. That should be the maximum, 1 inch. Okay. If the crop top is too boxy, it will be flying at the back, and you don't want it flying at the back, okay? So I'm going to have to redraw the line of my armhole, which is going to be my current armhole curve. I hope you understand what I'm doing right now, because this part is very necessary to give you that fit of boxiness. I'm going to have to redraw my armhole curve like so. So this is currently my armhole, okay? Now heading over to the other part, I'm going ahead now to determine the length of my crop top. So I used 19 inches, okay? I really do not want it to be hanging, despite the fact that I'm going to be using a gown to wear it. I really don't want it to be so much hanging, so I used 19 inches. And I will advise that when you're wearing this, please put on a camisole or something that is high-waisted so that it comes out classy. If your tummy is showing, you're going to be looking very shabby. So having done that, I'm going ahead now to add 1/2 inch to my original measurement. Like I said, I don't want it to be very boxy, so I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch, just 1/2 inch to my original measurement. You can go ahead to add 1 inch. I think 1 inch should be the maximum that you should add, except if you want something that is so big, but 1 inch should be the maximum. And please, I used just 1 yard by 60, 1 yard of fabric by 60 for this. Then I'll go ahead to detach this stuff right now. When I want to use it for another tutorial, I'll go ahead to gum it back to attach the other part of it. Okay, so now this is what we are working with. This is exactly the bodice we are working with. For the button area, we are going ahead to attach an extra paper to mark out our button area. Now I'm using 1 inch for the button area, which is what you should use also. 1 inch actually makes it come out nice and very okay. So 1 inch is okay. So I'm using 1 inch for the button area, like so. I attached an additional paper to my original pattern so you guys can understand it clearly. 1 inch all the way down, starting from this very part of your neckline. Okay, 1 inch, and that is it. Okay, so now this is what our pattern looks like. Next thing we're going to do now is to impute that very pocket. Okay, we're going to be marking the pocket. The reason why I mark the pocket on the bodice is because I don't want something that will fly. I want everything to just align, to come out nice. And I think this is the best way to teach. Like I said, this tutorial is beginner friendly, so it's going to help you as a beginner to understand better. Now we are going to be marking on the fabric. Everything I'm doing here is basically marking out how much I want my pocket to be, which the measurements are optional. Okay, you can decide that your pocket is going to look big, you can decide that it's going to look small, but whatever amount you're taking, be sure you write it on your pattern, so when you're sewing, you also know how to mark it out on your fabric. You know the amounts used on the pattern, so you can mark it also on the fabric. That's just the most important thing. Whatever amount you're taking in on your pattern, be sure you write it down so that you can be able to mark accurately that same amount on your fabric when you are about to sew the pocket. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing right now, marking out my pocket the way I want it to be. You can also mark yours the way you want it to be. Just be artistic here, be creative. Mark your pocket here the way you want it to be, how close you want it to be to the center front, how close you want it to be to the armhole. But please be sure you have a guide so you don't do something that looks awkward. So I'm going ahead now to create that kind of design on my pocket. My pocket is not straight, so it has this kind of edges that is kind of curvy, like so. I also go ahead to draw in the pocket cover. Everything has to come from the pattern. Okay, like you can see, we did not make use of the dart, we ignored the dart, but I had to put it there. Like I said, I'll be using this pattern for my other projects, so I need the dart to be there. And very soon, while I'm using it, I also include my side bust dart. But for this tutorial, you added the 1 inch to your waist dart, but then you are not going to sew in the dart because it's a boxy crop top. It's a boxy top. Whenever you're doing anything boxy, you don't need to sew that. When you sew that, you'll be having a fitted outcome. So I'm sewing the pocket cover. Sorry, I'm marking out the pattern for the pocket cover, like so. Actually, at this point, I was trying to, but I was feeling like I was getting confused, but then I had to align everything. So this is what we are having. Okay, I went ahead to label pocket, and I'll go ahead to trace out this pocket separately on a fresh pattern paper. I'll trace out this pocket on a fresh pattern paper. I'm going to trace out this pocket on a fresh pattern paper. Now, this pocket has a kind of design at the middle, which will make us to work on this very particular portion of the pocket, not the pocket cover, the main pocket itself. So we are working on it right now to create that design at the middle. I marked 1/2 inch on both sides of the middle, and then 1.5 inches after the 1/2 inch mark. And with my ruler, I'll go ahead to bring this down. So now I'll go ahead to cut open this very part, and I'll be adding fresh pattern paper. This fresh pattern paper is the part we are folding inwards, and the 1 inch is the part that is going to come up outwards. I hope you understand. The fresh pattern paper is the part we're going to fold inwards, and then this other part, the 1 inch, is the part that is going to be coming up outwards, and we're going to be folding like so. Same thing I'll go ahead to do to the other side. Okay, so now I've added to both sides. Okay, so this is what your pocket should look like. Okay, see the design of the pocket. So you go ahead to use your scissors to cut out the excess. Now this is our pocket, and this is it. Heading straight to the back bodies, you need your guideline first. Also mark 1/2 of your shoulder measurement there, and 2.5 inches for your neck width, and you come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope, connecting the 2.5 inches to the 1 inch for the shoulder slope. And then you impute your armhole measurement. Same measurement you used for the front, please. Impute your armhole measurement, and then you want to take the measurement from the toppest part of your guideline to your armhole, so you can form a straight line, which is your chest line. I'm going ahead to draw this down like so. I was running out of pattern paper here, so I had to make use of what I have, and it was actually late in the night, so I was running out of pattern paper here. I marked the midpoint of my armhole, sorry, the midpoint of my shoulder slope, so I can get my measurement downwards. Just basically same thing we did to the front with little changes. Just little minor changes. If you concentrate, you're going to get everything properly. So we also impute our bust apart measurement here so we can form our dart. And on the waist line, we are going to mark in 1/2 inch on both sides. We'll connect every point together to form our dart. So for the armhole of the back, instead of 1 inch, I used 0.7 inches inwards. I'm going ahead now to mark my measurements for my round bust, round waist, and also round hip for the back. Go ahead to use my ruler to connect this together. Then I'll use my marker to make this very visible so you guys can see it. Now also to modify the shoulder and the armhole, same thing we did to the front. We're adding 1/2 inch and also 1 inch to the length of the armhole or to the depth of the armhole. We'll redraw our chest line. I feel this line is slanted, but please, I think it's from the camera. It actually isn't slanted. It's from the way I position my camera, please. Then I'm redrawing my new armhole. Of course, we'll be adding 1/2 inch by the sides of our measurements. So for our collar, we'll go ahead to measure our neckline for the front and the back, and whatever you have, you write it down. Now we are going to be adding these two measurements together. So whatever measurement you have is what we are working with. Now you get a fresh pattern paper and draw a straight line and rule a straight line. On that straight line, you mark that measurement you have that you've measured from your front and back neckline. So I'm going to have to mark mine, and with a ruler, I'm going to be squaring the measurements down. The 1 inch you're seeing there is the 1 inch for the button area, okay? Now I went ahead to mark 1 inch downwards. This part is going to be the very part of my collar that is close to the neck. This is a 2-piece collar, the very first one, right? So I went ahead to give it that kind of finishing, and I slanted the top part of it like so. So when I sew the other one, it's going to fall nicely on it. And for the other part, I'm measuring 2 inches upwards from the very line of the very first piece collar. And I'm joining it like so, okay? Now here is going to be cut on fold. The part that is straight, we are going to be cutting on fold, please. I also made a very slight curve for this very particular part like so. Please, I have a well-detailed tutorial for collar. If you want to see that, then drop a comment and I'll drop the link for you to see it. I'm going to be cutting out this collar now. And so this is what our collar looks like. Okay, and these are all the patterns. So now I'm gonna have to start sewing. I've sewed up the part where the button is gonna be. So this is what it looks like, and this is the pocket. As you can see, I used my chalk to make a lot of markings so I do not get confused. This is the pocket cover. Okay, I'll also go ahead to sew these things up. So I'm gonna have to sew them up. This is what it looks like. It's forming up. Okay, and thereby I'll join my collar, my armhole. Thanks for watching. See you in the next